So with the conclusion of the Monaco Grand Prix, that now marks 8 races done in the season or one whole quarter of it. So with not that much news regarding F1, I thought, why don't we make a quarter season report and see how everyone's holding up before the very important race this week. I've had enough talking about or hinting at the Spain directives, so at this point it's on you if you don't know about them. Anyways, the first quarter of the season has been nothing short than hectic. Like not even last year's first quarter was this chaotic since it was before Red Bull lost their advantage. I would say this is the best start a season has had since 2022 and 21, and you might be saying, sure doesn't feel like it. And yeah, you're not wrong, most races have been dull and boring. However, thankfully, there isn't a dominant driver in the season yet, and even in that 3-race run that Piastri had, the runner-ups are always different, which have led to the top 3 in the standings being separated by 25 points and only 3 points in the top 2. So we are looking good for the rest of the season. However, I still want to make this video because again, it sure hasn't felt like a crazy start. So let this be the video that shows you how and why this season has been boringly brilliant and why we should pay more attention, especially because of the changes this week for Spain, which of course will kick off the second quarter of the season. The way I'm gonna do this video will be similar to how I do most of my winners and losers, in the sense that I will recap the season so far, listing off the race highlights, and then find the winners and losers from the first quarter itself, along with how they should improve or continue. So I think this video will be fun. We can all have a little fun sometimes, and ain't nothing sounds better than a little bit of fun. So go join the Discord to leave your stinky opinions and subscribe if you're new. So enough yapping, and here is my 2025 first quarter report. Like I just said, we will begin with the recap of all the weekends so far in 2025, which includes all the high and low lights. So let us not begin in Australia, since we have the preseason to cover first, which I guess could be counted as round 0. Preseason is always the most exciting and most boring session of the year, since this is, of course, the first time we see the new season car and the grid out on track, which for content creators like me is prime time to milk and make speculative content. Anyways, I'll also say this is the most boring session, since I mean, they're driving alright. This isn't a competitive session, so why would the guys get competitive? This often leads to nobody guessing the grid order correctly. However, we still get enough info to get the general idea. Preseason showed us that teams like McLaren and Mercedes had built good cars capable of regular podiums, while teams like Red Bull and Ferrari disappoint, which leads to their respective fan bases saying they're sandbagging. Guys, don't worry, we're still sandbagging, we'll perform soon. Anyways, other teams like Williams had shown to take massive steps forward with their car, while teams like Aston Martin had shown to take massive steps towards a cliff where they proceeded to fall. But other than these general assessments, it was a relatively calm 3 days as we continue to wait for the season opener in Melbourne. Which, speaking of, it's time to talk about it, and everyone is making their predictions saying how their favorite team will win and why they will win the title, but we all forget the inevitable with a certain orange team. No, I'm not saying papaya, I'm not pretentious. Anyways, let's not jump the gun. The free practices wouldn't really show much other than the McLaren car being dominant, Max making up literal seconds of the Red Bull, Mercedes being fast, and Ferrari being Ferrari. One session, these guys are suffering, and then the very next one, they are sniffing down McLaren for first. However, it wouldn't really matter since quali came around, which saw McLaren lock out the front row, Max compensating in 3rd, George in 4th, and Ferrari behind a Williams. So with nothing in the way, it is race time, and what's that? Rain in the air? Oh yeah, baby, lots of it. So every driver needs to keep it clean as they come off their box, and Jesus Christ already. Isaac Hadjar made what you would call a rookie mistake and became one of the few drivers to retire by crashing on lap 0. Tough luck, but that's how it be sometimes. So with lap 1 actually beginning, most drivers keep it clean, and I say most because Crap Doodoo was the exception with this heavy crash, and as if that weren't enough, Sainz crashes under safety car before lap 5 has even begun, and I need to take a smoke break. After my smoke break, the race gets back underway where nothing actually happens other than a few slides or spins, and at this point we may even doze off to sleep. That's until Alonso at least slaps us awake. By brilliant driving, you might say? Nuh-uh, by brilliant crashing. Cover your eyes, Alonso fans. Alonso was driving like he should, and as he approached the corner where he killed George last year with his aura, it seemed his aura was too big for him this time since he crashed. So with the safety car now out again, this opens up Pandora's box with the drivers going on slicks, and as the race gets back underway, Mother Nature pulls a sneaky one by ordering just enough rain for all the drivers to have to pit immediately again. So after Leclerc spins like a dummy, the McLaren drivers go off the road, and PM forcing crashing, the drivers are back out on inters, and now it's a sprint to the end. More like a light jog though, since no one really moved up. So the race ends with Lando taking the season opener and the lead in the standings for Max. A crazy chaotic race to open the season. However, the following races won't really compete with it, which thank goodness, because this Australia portion is already way too long. So that puts us in China this time for the second round of the season. Naturally, after the season opener, the second round has nearly the same amount of hype, also helped by this being the first sprint weekend of the year. The sprint format, by the way, just adds one more mini quali and mini race to the format in exchange for the normal 2 practice sessions we get. So with this being the second round and with only 1 practice session, we can expect chaos. The only free practice doesn't really show anything, so let's just go straight into the sprint quali. SQ1 blah blah blah, SQ2 blah blah blah, SQ3 Lewis Hamilton's on pole for his second race with Ferrari. I wish I could say more, but trust me, that was more entertaining than actually watching the sprint quali. And same with the sprint race, since despite the shorter race, which should incentivize the drivers to push, all we got were DRS trains at 5-second gaps. Hey man, I'm not complaining since Lewis cruises home to victory with nothing to worry about and aura farms afterwards. But not for long, since quali is the same day, and with Ferrari taking the pole and sprint win, surely they could do it for the Grand Prix stuff, right? Well, it's not the end of the world. Surely they could cut up and... I'm killing myself. The race itself would also be boring as hell. Definitely the second worst race of the season so far. The only possible highlight from it would just be Behrman cutting up, Charles going faster with the damage somehow, and Pastry getting his first dub of the year from Lando. So yeah, let's move on quick. Japan was the next race, and with this track being filled with good vibes from the fans and the circuit itself, it's only natural teams want to do something special, especially the Japanese affiliated teams. One of them being Red Bull, who got their inner white supremacy out. No, not with him, with this beautiful car. Like, come on guys, just make this livery permanent. It clearly worked out for you guys. Oops, spoiler. Haas also had a special livery with this nice pattern, and steak became a steak. Whoa, that was bad. Anyways, the actual sessions. FP1 was boring, FP2 insert overused doo-doo joke, FP3 was boring, and qualifying would be boring. Until Q3. Q3 for some reason is when every driver locks in, since if you start from pole, you lead the race. So you had McLaren going rapid, George going rapid, and Maxi Poo going the fastest of them all. It was super tight, so surely the race would display the same thing, right? Not exactly. If you just look at the timings, then whoa man, the top 3 separated by like 3 seconds? Cool man, but no, the whole race was like that. Like, the gap did not increase or decrease, it just stayed the same. So you can imagine how boring that was. But at least Max won in that beauty of a car from Lando, so hopefully Bahrain can continue him being on the up. It was anything but up. Bahrain would feature everybody failing. All 3 free practice sessions were again unremarkable, and surprisingly, same with the quali as well. Pole was won by over 1/10, which yes, is a big gap nowadays, so the race would come. I don't know what's worse, Max's strategy team consisting of starving pigeons or Kimi Antonelli being put on like a 500 stop strategy. No one was having fun except for Piastri, who just cruised home to victory like it was nothing from Russell in second. So now we move on to Jeddah, and this race should be better considering all the craziness that this track always produces. Again, free practice consists of drivers driving and existing, I don't know, but the quali is when this gets good. Q1, Q2 more like sleepy time, and Q3 more like heroin. Nothing in this world beats the feeling of watching 2 or more great drivers giving it full beans around a track for pole position. It was Pastry v Satan v Woody, with pole position eventually going to Satan by 1/100th of a second. Absolutely lovely. Man, I cannot wait for the race tomorrow where it will continue being this tight, and never mind, race control killed the vibes immediately. When Max overtook off track, instead of being asked to handle plays back, the FIA slapped him with a 5-second penalty, which just killed any sort of fight for the win. Way to go, race control. You ruined the only fucking chance we had. So after that tomfoolery, now we have the tomfoolery of Miami, which again is another sprint weekend. Free practice. SQ1 starts and immediately the rookie Antonelli is on it. SQ2 happens and nothing really changes before in SQ3, Kimi does it. For the first time in F1 history, Kimi Antonelli is a pole sitter and the youngest one at that, asterisk. It's a sprint quali, so many argue it doesn't count. However, I say, you are a lame and it's a record that's inevitable anyway. So with that out the way, it's time for the sprint race, and breathe in everybody. Firstly, Leclerc saw Hadjar crash out on lap 0 and said, I'll do you one better, and crashes out on lap negative zone. Jesus, man, I have no words. Oh yeah, in case you're blind, it is raining, so the race will be delayed for a bit, with it finally getting underway almost an hour later. It starts off calm with nothing really happening, but then the rain falls again and OMG. Here's a summary. Sainz crashes, Red Bull assassinate Kimi through Max, and Alonso crashes. However, I probably missed something else. Oh yeah, Lando got another fraud safety car win in the sprint. Peak cinema, JDs and Lettleman. Anyways, time for the real quality, and Lewis does what he does best and disappoint, since after his great sprint podium, he gets knocked down in Q2 and Max is on pole. We should be in for another fun one, and fun it was. Mostly. Max drops like a stone since his tin can started tin canning, but he tried taking both Oscar and especially Lando down with him, which was all great fun. And other than Ferrari not really knowing what the race strategy is anymore, the race would die down with Pastry eventually winning by a huge gap from Lando. Still, finally, we enter the current triple header with Imola, and I'll keep this one short since they are fresh in our mind. The basic synopsis is crap doo-doo was cruelly dropped by Alpine for Franco Colapinto, and Imola was a banging race with Pastry getting pole before getting embarrassed by Max, which leads to his victory over Lando. And finally, Monaco. I think I would rather see my family die in front of my eyes than see that bullshit race again. That two-stop mandatory rule upon reflection was so bad, man. Basically, for those who don't know, all teams are forced to stop twice in the pits for new tires in an effort to spice this race up, and it did anything but. The race was manipulated by some teams, and it was just super boring, man. Lando won the race from Leclerc, who also looked faster here, and yeah, less said the better. So finally, guys, the losers of the season. This will be very brief since I didn't imagine it would take this long to recap the season, so you just have to trust my word as being the only truthful word on this platform. Anyways, the losers I have for this season are Ferrari, Aston Martin, Alpine, Liam Lawson, and Red Bull. Now I say Red Bull not because of Max or Yuki, they're doing the best they can despite any improvements they can make. When I'm speaking about Red Bull, I mean the management side, and yeah, these guys suck. I mean, it's crazy how Liam was ass in that car at first, he gets dropped for Yuki, who is now doing ass in that car after doing good at the second team where Liam is now doing good at, and they'll still not see that they are the problem. At this rate, Hadjar will be placed next to Max, and when he inevitably fails with Yuki improving again at the second seat team, I would love to see the faces of Horner and Marco. Anyways, I also have Liam here, who is barely starting to improve. All season long, Red Bull are racing bulls. He has shown horrendous racecraft and flat out bad pace. Spain will be a proving ground to see if Monaco is the beginning of his return or his further downfall in the sport, so let us see what happens. I have Alpine here because, like, what have they done? They swapped drivers. Woohoo, I guess. Their car is bad and they need to upgrade it flat out since Gasly does not deserve the shit he is being fed by Alpine right now. And I swear to God, if Franco is dropped just like Jack was, Flavio, count your days. I have Aston here because all season long they have been jerking off instead of upgrading the car. However, I say that when they finally did upgrade the car and look decent again, so just like with Liam, let's see if Spain can continue the rise. And finally, Ferrari are here because despite us somehow being 5 points away from second, this season has been riddled with inconsistency and ineptitude, so if we don't improve in these regards for Spain, my life may be on the line. Now for the winners, and I have McLaren, Verstappen, Williams, and Hadjar. I of course have Isaac Hadjar here because he has been one of, if not the best rookie this year so far. I mean, we all thought he would stink up the grid, but he is not the shit on, he is the shitter, and good for him. We thought he would be high-tempered and crashing, but here he is getting P6. Nice job, man. I have Williams next up. We're taking a huge leap compared to last year. Hopefully they can continue this form and not slump after the new directives in Spain, so let us see how they do. I have Max next up for being Max. I don't think I need to elaborate. And finally, I have McLaren here because they are simply the best. They are the fastest and they will continue being that unless they take stupid pills or the Spain directives do actually kill them like everybody likes to believe. So before I round out the video, I want to briefly say how I think the next quarter will look like. I think the Spain directives will change up the grid slightly in the sense that teams are closer now and it will have to take more effort from every driver on the grid should they want to keep up their good form or wish to improve their standing. I don't think it will be like super tight, but for sure tighter, which will hopefully lead to more action. And I'm calling it now. Silverstone will be by far the best race of the season and perhaps top 3 in this entire era of Formula 1. Time will only tell. Anyways, that was my quarter season report. Man, this is longer than I expected, but don't worry, I still had fun and hopefully you did too. Also, let me know if I should do this for every quarter of the season, since I certainly would not mind. Anyways, I want to give a quick shout out to all members of the vlog for their continued support, and make sure to join it if you want cool benefits as well as just helping me out. Anyways, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe since it really helps me out. And make sure to let me know in the comments what your report is, and as always, have an amazing day.
Good weather for the duck.